Hello! Welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie, and this channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things my kids may say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes, that you find some inspiration along the way. We are in the middle of January, year 2021. Whoops! Year 2022. I was wondering how long it would take me to get the year all mixed up. 2022 sounds so different from 2021, and yet feels much the same. This is episode 78. A big warm welcome if you are joining me for the first time here, and a warm welcome back if you are a returning viewer. It has only been about a week since my last episode, but I wanted to get on here today because I was thinking that maybe with some less projects to talk about, that I make sure I reserve time to talk about some cookbooks that I really wanted to talk about. And just some more foodie related things. I had mentioned in the previous episode that I really wanted to get to some of those things, but sometimes the episodes I feel like just get a bit long. The first thing is, though, related to episode 77. Thank you so much for all of the continued conversation, for joining me in conversation in the YouTube comments on that episode, as well as on Instagram. I tried to share a cover image of the episode on Instagram, not only to alert people that an episode is out with an invitation to come join me here on YouTube, but also for people to find another place to talk about things if YouTube comments aren't their preferred method of conversation. And I just feel it feels so good to be heard and to be understood, and whether or not people agree with me all the time, I really don't expect people to. In fact, I would find it really strange if people agreed with me all the time, but I do value people for appreciating me for just being who I am and for hearing me out, and that just felt really good to feel like I was heard and seen. And yeah, so thank you so much. Part of the reason why I am on here on YouTube and have a presence on Instagram is because I feel like representation matters. And it goes beyond just saying like, hey, that person looks like me. It's like, it goes into how you talk about things, your life experiences, languages you might speak, foods that you relate to. Like, it touches on so many different things because we are multidimensional people. And as people, we are looking for connection with others, and that may be a connection in so many different ways. Either maybe like, oh, that's your favorite color too? That's my favorite color too. Or you know, you think about as little kids how excited you get when someone says that they have something that's similar to you or the same or things like that. And even as adults, I feel like we find those connections in so many ways, and you feel, again, understood or seen or heard or valued when someone makes that connection. And so yeah, that's why I'm here, and I'm so glad that you are here as well. So today I have 2 finished projects to share with you, and I have 2 works in progress to share with you. I have a little stack of cookbooks here that I would like to talk about as well, and links to things that I talk about will be in the description box below. Make sure you click show more so that all the show notes pop up. I will generally link to the websites of designers, makers, things like that. And then I do use Ravelry for my projects, and so that will be in a separate section. It'll link to Ravelry project pages and specifically state that. As always, all of my videos have captioning provided, so you just click on the CC button down below. I edit the captions at YouTube auto captions so that they make sense and things are spelled correctly. I will probably be speaking some Mandarin or Taiwanese later on in the episode as I talk about some of the foods and things in these cookbooks, so that'll be fun to edit. I am not the best at phonetic translation of things, but I'll do my best, and Google will be my friend, and Google Translate will hopefully help me out there too. So we shall see how that goes. But yeah, so grab a beverage and let's chat. We are going to start with a pair of socks for my first finished project. Dun 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 dun! These I cast on Christmas Day with my 2021 Yarn Advent dyed by River of a Knitter's Homestead, and I just love these colors together so much. I had mentioned on my Instagram that sometimes when certain colors come together and just sing so harmoniously, I mean, it's just like that moment, right? And for me here, the navy, the mauve, and the ochre, I adore these together. The navy here is called Shiny Kettle. It's actually a bronze stellina. I'm not sure if the sun is going to catch it today, especially since it's marled with this mauvey color, which is a silver stellina, but I'm going to hold it up real close and see if it comes through. The mauve color has some very subtle speckling in it, and I can never remember if it's called Cottage Christmas or Christmas Cottage. One of the two. And these are 2-ply, and then the ochre is called Gingerbread. So the navy and the ochre were part of the 20-gram minis that I opened throughout the day leading up to Christmas, and then the mauve color was a full skein, 100 grams, that I opened on Christmas Day. This pattern is the High Desert Socks by Lindsay of Larkspur Knits, and I have knit so many pairs of these socks. They are DK weight, so you hold fingering double. I love the look of marling 2 colors together. I just feel like it gives it such a cozy vibe, and it is a really fun way to play with color. It gives more visual interest than if it was completely solid, and it's a fun way to kind of blend colors together into a more cohesive look than having like solid color blocks. There is some ribbing to it, which I feel like makes it fit really well to your feet, which also makes it a good gift knit, because anything with ribbing is going to have a little more stretch, and I always struggle with what the opposite of the stretch would be. Shrink back, stretch, and retrieve. I don't know. If you know what word I am looking for, please drop it in the comments below. The opposite of stretch. But yeah, there's a slip stitch, heel flap, turn and gusset, and the toe, I think in the pattern is written to use the CC1, the first contrast color, but I did not have enough, so I used the second contrast color, which you really don't use much of in these stripes and legs. You do use well, I used the same needles as the pattern calls for, which is a US 3 or 3.25 millimeter needle. I knit mine using 9-inch circulars, which is my preferred needle of choice when knitting socks that have minimal texture or patterning to them. Otherwise, I'll use magic loop. And I know a lot of people hear a lot about the 9-inch circulars and want to try them, but aren't sure. I would say if you are a particularly tight knitter, you might have to change the way you hold your needles, because some people use their pinkies to like really grab onto a longer needle, and because the needles are so much shorter, you might not find a spot for your pinkies to rest or latch onto. I don't think I knit particularly tight or loose, but I do like how my hands have to change how they are holding onto the needles compared to double pointed needles or magic loop. And so I just hold them relatively loose, I guess, like in hand, not knitting necessarily looser, but like holding the needles looser, and I do find it very comfortable. I am a thrower, and so I do let go and like throw my working yarn around. And I think people use the 9-inch circulars comfortably, whether they knit continental or English style or picking or throwing or whatever. So you'll just have to figure out what works for you. And if 9-inch circulars don't work for you, then they don't work for you. Thank goodness there are so many different tools for different makers. Oh, I forgot to mention that I did make the cuff longer and the legs much longer on these socks than the pattern calls for. So I did use up more yardage than the pattern recommends, and I did not run out of yarn. So the remaining yarn I have for my main color is, I think, 18 grams. So here are the 2 balls. I'm going to hold it up real close so maybe you can see the color nicely. It's got that beautiful 2-ply twist to it. So I will happily use those in some other project. And then this is what I have left of my first contrast color, which is 2 grams. And then this is what I have left of my second contrast color, which is about a little less than 5 grams. So I will happily use those in another project. Oh, here is the tag for the main color. It's Cottage Christmas. I'm going to hold that tag up for you to see. And yeah, so that was a 2-ply, 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 5% stellina. And I think the tonal, which is the gingerbread, that one is 2-ply Blueface Leicester. But the sparkle yarns were superwash merino, nylon, stellina blends. The second finished project I would love to share with you is one that I really need to get mailed off soon. So that was another reason that I thought I would just record today. It is the beloved Baby Bonnet by Tin Can Knits. And I have to say, I guess it isn't just for babies. There's 5 sizes: newborn, baby, toddler, child, and adult. And it is pretty stretchy. And I made the newborn size because one of my friends of 30+ years just had their first baby, and I'm so excited for them. And so I really need to get this mailed off. They had a itty bitty baby, so I made the newborn size, and I think it'll fit just fine. I'm going to hold it up close. This is one of my favorite patterns to knit. It is so clever in its construction. It is a paid-for pattern, so I won't go into details any more than what they have on their like the front part of the Ravelry page, but you knit it all in one piece. There's no seaming involved, and it is DK weight. So I use the needle suggested, which is US 6 or a 4mm, and you start on one side with the I-cord and knit up and go up and around and back down, and you finish with the I-cord. Isn't that so clever? So this is the profile view of it. So imagine a baby head in here. So they would wear it like this. Oh, it's so cute. What I love about this pattern, besides the really clever construction, is that it's very wearable. Like sometimes with beanies on babies, I feel like once they start turning around or they're fussing, then it comes down and like covers their eyes, and some babies really don't like that, so they scream louder. And also, it just like moves around a lot. But this, because it's a bonnet, their head sits really nice on this back curve section, and it stays out of their face because it frames their face, and oh, it's just so cute. Love this. And since it's DK weight, you can also hold fingering weight double, which is a great way to use yarn maybe that you have remaining from socks. I know at least for me, I never use up the 100 grams in a skein, and so if you had, let's see, newborn size recommends 85 yards of DK weight yarn. Baby size uses 100 yards of DK weight yarn. And so any remainders of like 50 grams or less of fingering weight yarn, you could probably do this pretty easily, right? Even the adult size only uses 175 yards of DK weight yarn, which is still less than 50 grams of DK weight yarn, I think. Am I doing that math correctly in my head? In any case, it doesn't use up a ton of yarn, but it is a great way to play with color and use yarns remaining from other projects. So I need to get this mailed off ASAP. I have a couple other goodies that I am putting into that little care package for them. And yeah, I'm so excited. We are on to works in progress, but I feel like before I jump into that, I should probably mention the shawl that I am wearing. I am wearing the Colorful Keepsake shawl by Tina Say, and it was a mystery knit-along, and previously I've said that I do not do mystery knit-alongs, but this one I did because I know Tina's style. She said a few things about what it might be, and I went with it, and I love Tina, so this is what I am wearing. I have talked about it, I think, probably somewhere in a previous episode, but I love how cheery and bright it is, and it is a pretty large asymmetrical triangle. I don't think I can even get the whole thing here in the frame. And I even left out one section. I think it was a lace section, and being someone that doesn't particularly love knitting lace, I decided to just not do that part. So I just ended it a little bit early, and it is still a wonderfully cozy large size, and it is knit in fingering weight yarn, so it is pretty lightweight. I can wear this in the summer and in the spring, and I just thought I would pop it on today because it is such a cheerful color. We had some sun earlier, but I think the clouds have moved in. It is warmer today actually than it has been, and when you are 20, 30 degrees above zero, it feels so warm compared to 20 or 30 degrees below zero. And I was tempted to open the windows the other day, but decided maybe not. And for anyone who thinks that winter is now over, maybe in your area it is, but for us, January and February are usually our coldest months, and we still have a chance of snow in early May. So our winter season is maybe October through May, but I will say that this year we had snow much later, and due to climate change, a lot of things have affected the seasons, and so our winter season has felt actually not that long yet, even though we are already in the middle of January. So, like I said, onto works in progress. I will show you the one in this bag first. I sewed up this beautiful drawstring bag last year, end of last year. I picked up this fat quarter fabric from a local yarn shop to me who also carries fabric, which is awesome. They just had a stack of pre-cut fat quarters, and I was looking through them, and this one really spoke to me. I love all the different people on there. Let me hold it up a little closer so you can see it better. It is so vibrant and cheerful, and I really wanted to start out a project in this new year with this bag. I have little cotton webbing handles on it. There's a drawstring channel, a denim boxed bottom, and yeah, I really love it. So, in this bag, I have more yarn from River of Enders Homestead. It is from the same advent calendar that I have knit a hat with that I talked about in maybe episode 76. And then these socks that I had just shared with you, and now I'm making another pair of socks. I am going to put up a photo here on the screen of all the minis that I am using instead of trying to hold them all in my hand, because chances are I will just drop all of them and make a big mess. They are more jewel toned, and there were 23 minis in this advent because day 24 and 25 were full skeins. And out of those 23 minis, 10 of them were tweed. And I am not someone that has a lot of tweed yarns. I like the look of tweed, but I always worry that I'm going to, like if I made a garment with tweed, that I would sit there trying to pick off the tweed. I don't know if I actually would. It's just like in my brain thinking that I might. And so I don't really have tweed yarn, but you know what? I'm going to try to hold these up anyway because the colors are so vibrant and saturated and beautiful. So ready? Here we go. Oh, I guess this isn't all of them, but it's a lot of them. So they are just so delightful, and they go really well with this bag full of different colors. And I have cast on a pair of tweed socks. Now, like I've mentioned in previous episodes, I like to knit my socks 2 at a time, not on the same needles, so 2 at a time concurrently. I think that's the right word, concurrently. And I am knitting a 3x1 rib, so knit 3, purl 1, and I just decided I would do that for the entire sock. I haven't decided on the heel. Chances are I'll put in a shadow wrap heel because that's what I like. And for the foot, I'll just do the 3x1 rib on the top and then stockinette along the bottom. And yeah, let me hold this up closer to you so you can see them. And as far as color goes, I just pick whatever I think looks best next. And so this one is currently on this indigo tweed. And these are all 2-ply, Blueface Leicester, superwash Blueface Leicester, I believe. And yeah, I love how they are working up. It is so much fun. Tweed, I was looking up, I think it has a Scottish origin to it. So that was kind of cool to learn. I don't know a ton about like yarn and milling and things like that. But I was kind of curious where tweed, like the origin of tweed, came from. And I believe I read that the little neps in it, I think that's what it's called, like the little bits, are, well, at least used to be, I don't know if it still is, like recycled parts of fiber. So I thought that was really cool. And on my Instagram, I had asked what you would think would be a collective noun for a group of tweed yarn. I don't know about you, but I am fascinated by collective nouns. I think they're so much fun, and learning about what you call different groups of animals. And so I was just looking at these little balls of tweed and thinking, what would you call a bunch of tweed yarn? I'm going to read to you what some people wrote because I loved it so much. Okay, so here are some of the ones that people said. Twood, T-W-O-O-D, Tweedish, Tweedling, Haven, Tweed assemblage, a tweedle, a nepture of tweed, and yes, I think that was the last one. Isn't that so much fun? I just love it. And when I Googled, I did not find anything specific to a grouping of tweed. If you have any ideas on what a collective noun for a grouping of tweed yarns would be, drop them in the comments below, or find I think the post I have has all of these minis together, so you're welcome to join in on the conversation over there. Okay, the next work in progress I'll share with you is one that I have had on the needles for over a year. Now, I am somebody that tends to like to kind of just get things done, and if it is not working out for me, I frog it. And this one I really wanted. And I started it at a time which didn't make sense to start it. It was October of 2020. My kids were at home doing distance learning, and yeah, being like interrupted every 2 minutes and someone yelling "Mom" all the time did not make for a good time to start a colorwork yoked sweater that had long repeats and complicated. I mean, it wasn't actually complicated, but for the time, it was complicated. Like, it was just not my best choice in project. And I may have touched on this in previous episodes, but I like to knit or make efficiently. And that doesn't necessarily mean making as fast or as much as possible, but for me, it means pairing the project with the timing that allows me to get the most out of it. Does that make sense? So like, if I'm going to just be waiting in the car for a few minutes, I'm not going to bring something that I have to like really settle into. Look up a pattern, figure out where I'm at, have yarn management. No, instead, I'm going to bring a stockinette or vanilla sock that I can just pull out of the bag, start knitting, maybe even get only a round or two in, and then put it away, whatever. So that's like my time management thinking for projects and knitting or whatever project. Anyway, so this was not my smartest choice, but I just really wanted it. So I did it anyway, and I messed up a bunch of times. I had to frog this thing several times. It is no fault of the pattern or the designer. My brain just wasn't there for that project, but I still really wanted it, so I just kept trying, and I would put it away in timeout for months and come back to it. This project is the Hyphenated. It is a pullover by Jamie Hoffman, and I'm going to show you it now. And dun, da, 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 dun, da, da, da. We have lost our sunlight, so it may not seem as vibrant, but it really is beautiful. So I have split for the sleeves. I am on the body. I just recorded a video about how I'm alternating skeins in this project, so I'll link to that in the corner here up on the screen. You can also find it in, I think, my playlist called How To or Knitting Tutorials or something like that. And yeah, I love it. I really love it. I just needed to get done with the colorwork yoke, which I adore, and get to this stockinette round and round. I'm knitting the size 2, which should give me about 5 inches of positive ease, 4 or 5 inches of positive ease. I did not swatch for this project because, again, I was just in one of those I must cast on now modes, and that was October 2020. Modifications to this, let's see. I am using the needle size called for, except I changed to bigger needles in the body. So a lot of people will do their color work in a bigger needle size than their stockinette. But I swapped it around here because I feel like I was overcompensating maybe to make my flows really loose, and by doing that I made my gauge change. So I'm very proud of my color work. I think it's going to block out very flat and no puckering, but I do think that it ended up being slightly looser of a gauge than I was anticipating, maybe. So you use a US 2 for the neckline and the cuffs, then a US 3, which is 3.25 millimeter for the rest. And I got to the body stockinette portion, and I was not loving knitting all of that, or thinking about having to knit all of that on a US 3. And so I switched to a US 4. Now, of course, that's going to change my fabric density, and I'm okay with that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to gradually do decreases in the waist to get down to the circumference that I want. So I will decrease by 2 and 2 on each side, and do that every, I think 10 rounds is what I decided, and that should get me to the length that I eventually want. Because if my gauge was initially supposed to be, let's say, 7 stitches per inch, and now I'm at 6 or 6.5 stitches per inch, you may think that half a stitch per inch difference isn't going to make a huge difference, but it does when you have, you know, X number of stitches on your needles for a big circumference, right? It adds up. So basically, the math that I did was I figured out, you know, my stitches per inch and how many stitches I have on my needles. So what circumference does that end up being? Now, if I don't want that circumference, how much positive ease do I want? And then I do the math to figure out how many stitches that needs to be at the circumference that I want. And then I subtract that and figure out how many less stitches I need to get down to the circumference that I want. Anyway, so that's what I'm doing. And then I found my neckline I felt like to be a little bit too wide, so I did a crochet edge on that, and I will link to a tutorial that I recorded on a different sweater up here. I'll link to it, and it just gives a little more structure to a neckline that might be too wide. Now I haven't tried this on yet, again, so hopefully I can get my head over it. I think it should be okay. In any case, it is a slip stitch edging, so I can always take it out really easily and redo it if I need to. So yeah, this is definitely a long-term project. It's taken me a long time, but now that I'm on the stockinette body portion, it should go much quicker. I haven't quite decided how long I want the sleeves to be yet. It is kind of a deeper yoke. I do want it to be a full-length sweater, I think, and I have enough yarn. Oh, I didn't even mention what the yarn is. This is the Yarn Collective Floorville 4-ply, fingering weight. Hellebore is the colorway. It is a brown with a purple undertone at 382 yards for 100 grams, 100% superwash merino. These two cakes are quite different. One's much darker than the other, and so I am alternating skeins. And like I mentioned, I have a video for that on how I'm doing it, because it's a little different than how I have alternated skeins in the past, but definitely very easy and seems magic on how it works. The yarn that I used for the contrast color was a gradient dyed by Christina of Teal Torch Knits called Pretty Thoughts. There was a cream in the beginning that I'd cut out, and then it goes to this like peachy cream, a light pink, a light pinkish lavender, and then lavender, and it keeps going, I think, into like a darker purple, but I just didn't even get to that part. Here's the ball on the screen. So yeah, I clearly don't have a deadline for this. I'll finish it when I finish it. I think it'll be a really nice spring sweater since it is fingering weight, so it'd be great if I had it done in May. I don't know, we'll see. Are you a tea drinker or a coffee drinker? Or both? Or neither? I am predominantly a tea drinker. And today I have this Taiwan tea. It's an oolong tea. Here's the container it is in. And we'll show you the inside. Well, it's in a bag, in a container, to prolong its freshness. But here is what the bag looks like. I think some of the few tea leaves fell out. Let's see if I can hold it up to show you in case you haven't seen like dried tea leaves before. I'm not sure this is gonna show very well, but yeah, that's not gonna show at all. What I think I'll do is insert here on the screen a short reel that I made on Instagram showing me making tea in one of the early mornings, and I believe it is with this particular tea as well. Tea is a really important part of my Taiwanese heritage. So my parents are both from Taiwan. They are from the same city in Taiwan, and I was born and raised in the United States, but feel a particularly strong tie to my heritage because my parents always instilled in us that sense of pride, and I feel a sense of responsibility to understand who I am and to pass it on to my children as well. So that segues into a cookbook that I wanted to talk about. So I have 3 here that I would like to share with you today. And this first one is called The Food of Taiwan. It is by Cathy Erway, and something I particularly love about this book, well, hold on, back up a little bit. So the reason I know about this book is my husband, and I don't remember if both of the kids went with him, or just one, or if even the youngest one was born yet. I don't really quite remember, but they found the book at a library and thought I would love it, and they would love it because I do most of the cooking at home. And so they brought home this book, and I was so excited to see it. And the reason is, a lot of the cooking that my mom does, that my grandparents do, or I guess my grandmothers do, neither of my grandfathers cook, but it's all like in their heart, right? In their heart, in their minds. Nothing is written down at all. And if you ask them, like, how much of whatever you put in, they won't tell you. Like, I've never seen a single measuring tool ever in my grandparents' house. You just don't do that, I guess. And everything is amazing, and it's all by experience, right? And passed down. And I have to say that a lot of it, I don't have that ingrained in me. Not that my parents or my mom didn't make Taiwanese food growing up. She definitely did, but I don't know if part of it is just growing up here in the United States, but it just wasn't as around me constantly, maybe. I mean, that's not true. It was around me constantly because I ate at home, but you're not immersed in that constant culture, I think. And this sounds kind of weird, but I guess I'm afraid of messing up. I'm not usually afraid of messing up. Like, I will adapt recipes however way I can, even if I don't have all the ingredients. But I guess I don't want to mess with something that is so traditional, or that I expect to taste a certain way, and then when it doesn't, I feel like I failed. And I don't know. I want things to taste a certain way, like the way my mom makes it, or the way my ama makes it. Ama is grandmother in Taiwanese. And if I don't make it that way, I don't want to be like, ugh, that was annoying, or a waste of time, or a waste of ingredients, right? And this book, the great thing is, one, it's in English. My reading and writing levels in Chinese are very, very rudimentary. If it's within a context, like if something says like gas station and it's, in front of a gas station, I can figure out, the words and stuff. But maybe I'm a little bit better than that. I did go to Chinese school when I was little on Saturday mornings, and I went until I was 12. And then I had to choose between orchestra or Chinese school because they were at the same time, and I went with orchestra instead. And near the end of my Chinese school education, I opted to take Chinese watercolor painting, and that was much more interesting to me than memorizing characters. But in hindsight, I suppose both are very valuable. When you're 12, sometimes there are things that you want to do, and sometimes there are things you don't want to do. And I suppose that doesn't apply to just 12-year-olds. That applies to all year-olds. So this book, what is so great about it is there are so many familiar recipes. Pretty much everything in here I'm familiar with. And it gives you measurements. And then if something doesn't taste like my mom's cooking, I can change it because I have a basic recipe to go off of to then make what I think tastes the way it should taste. And I have made several things from this book, and I've gotten it for my brothers as well because we all feel very similarly. And I remember there was this one dish in here, I don't remember which one it was, but there was a dish in here that that I never realized was actually like a traditional Taiwanese dish. I thought my mom just like made stuff up. But yeah, I guess this kind of goes back to feeling seen, being heard, feeling understood, celebrating culture, celebrating who I am, and learning more and more about my culture. And some of the things I feel like that's difficult is like I can't find necessarily all the ingredients here easily. I do have Asian grocery stores that I can go to and find more specific ingredients, but I may not necessarily have all of them on hand all the time. One thing that I actually have cooking currently on the stove is 茶叶蛋, which means tea eggs, and they are, I don't know if braised is the right word, but you have eggs that are simmering in a liquid of, there's like soy sauce, star anise, water, and tea leaves. And so there's usually black tea, and it just simmers in there for at least a couple of hours. And the special part about it is when you first hard boil it for a little bit, I think like 5 minutes or so, you crack the outside a little bit, not too much so that it comes off, but just a little. And then you place them in this liquid, and then over time, it stains the inside, like the white part of the egg, so you get this beautiful, like marbly, crackled look on it. And I'm laughing in my head right now because, again, this is like an if you know, you know type of comment, but in Taiwan, there are a lot of 7-Elevens. Not 7-Elevens in the sense of like a gas station, but 7-Elevens are kind of like a Walgreens or CVS there, and they have these 茶叶蛋 sold there. And so when you walk in, sometimes that's like the first smell you get. They have these like vats of them. And right now my house smells like a 7-Eleven. And I laugh because to some people that might sound really strange, but to me it smells of 茶叶蛋. The next cookbook I'd like to share with you is a new one, and I am so excited about it. It is Mooncakes and Milk Bread by Christina Cho, and she is based in San Francisco, but grew up with their family owning a Chinese restaurant in Cleveland, Ohio. And this book is basically all of the yummy things you find in a Chinese bakery. And this book just came out, I want to say like right before Christmas time. So I don't remember the month, but somewhere right before Christmas time. And I was so excited to see this because I don't have one of these bakeries near me, and I love everything in these bakeries. I just remember like as a kid going to the bakeries and having the tray, and then you have like tongs, and you go pick out, you know, all the different goodies that you want onto your tray, and then you go check out, and you just can't wait to dig into all of these things, like the pineapple crust buns that actually have no pineapple in them. It's just how it looks on the outside. And you have your savory ones with corn, green onion, and ham on it, and oh, everything's just so good. My mouth is like literally drooling right now. So when this book came out, I also needed to get this for my brothers, and so yeah, we all got each other a copy of this book. Like that was our gift, to each other. And so far in this, I have made the chicken curry puffs. Let me see if I can hold it up without giving away the recipe here. I think so. These are the chicken curry puffs. They were really good. I would make even the chicken curry part on its own to eat with rice. The other one I made, let's see. Oh, I made jianbing. That was super good. Let me show you that here. Oh, so good. If I still have a picture of that, I will stick that here up on the screen of the one that I made. I think I shared it on Instagram, but I can't remember if I saved the picture. I don't think I made a reel. I think it was just a picture or something. So I'll pop that on the screen if I still have it. And there's so many things I want to make in here. I wanted to make, in Taiwanese it's called gui, and in Mandarin it's luobo gao. And I believe Christina actually speaks Cantonese, so I think in her like writings underneath phonetically it's written out in Cantonese, and I don't speak Cantonese, so but in English this one is called turnip cake. And something funny about languages, so growing up I didn't necessarily know what words I was saying or Taiwanese versus Mandarin. So Chinese is like the overarching and the writing. So all the writing is the same. The characters are the same. But your language, like what you speak, is not the same. And just because you know one does not mean you can understand the other. I do not understand any Cantonese, but I can speak Mandarin and Taiwanese. Not fluently, but enough to get by. The last cookbook I'd like to share with you today is this one, A Common Table by Cynthia Chen McTurnan. And she is the creator of Two Red Bowls on Instagram, and I believe it's a blog as well. I received this cookbook as a birthday present, I think last year or the year before. This one came out in 2018, and Cynthia is Chinese, and her husband, I believe, is Irish and Korean, and this book combines all of that. What really resonates with me in this book is exploring who we are through so many different ways, but through food. And like learning about who we are through food and celebrating who we are through food. And this book has photographs, like I like. I only buy cookbooks with photographs because I want to know what I am making and what it's supposed to look like. So a couple of recipes that have gone really well for me so far in here are the milk bread recipes. Let's see if I can find it here. I have made the black sesame milk bread a few times, and that has worked out really well for me. I'm trying to find a picture of it here without having to go through the index, but I might have to do that anyway. I have also made the black sesame stuffed French toast, and that was so good. I love anything black sesame. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Here we go. There's a picture of what the black sesame twist bread looks like. So yeah, I look forward to cooking through this book as well. There are so many things in here that look delicious, and one of my favorite things to do on a rainy day, or really any day, is to pull out some of these cookbooks, flip through them, tab them, figure out my meal planning, and just get ideas for what I can make for myself and my family. So I think that is everything that I wanted to share with you today. And I'm pretty sure this episode did not end up short. I just had a lot of things that I remembered to share, and I figured I should share them while I remember. I hope you are doing well. I don't want to go into how scary I feel like the world is these days, or for the last many weeks and months. I don't really want to harp on that right now. Not ignoring it, just choosing not to talk about it right now. I feel like we have to find excitement and joy where we can, when we can, because otherwise the days can feel mundane or like doomsday every day. Yeah. Anyway, I hope you are finding some joy in your life every day and time to just relax a little bit, close your eyes a little bit, even if it is for 10 seconds to reset. I know I need to do that every once in a while. So with that, cheers to being creative, and take care. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.